Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with rotowire.com's lead prospect analyst, James Anderson. Good to be talking with you, James. Your Dynasty Rankings, which you have taken over from Ian Kahn at the site, just up, your first iteration, and want to just spend the podcast going over those, and we'll establish the parameters that you're working under momentarily. But how are you doing today on this Wednesday?
I'm pretty fried, man. I apologize in advance if I am a little not all there for this one, but it feels good to have these things done. I definitely remember why I had Ian take them over in the first place. This is a monster undertaking, and it's one of those projects where you just sometimes you look at it and you're like, this is pretty good, and then sometimes you look at it and you're just like, oh man, I don't know about that. And
you just do endless tweaking.
If
you wanted to.
It's I could look at it in like a week and I'd probably make a bunch of big changes. So it's done for now. I'm not going to do another update for at least a few months, but put a lot of work into it, so hopefully it's useful.
Yeah, I know you were up early, putting in a lot of time before this pod so that we had a full top 400 to talk about. Again, James has taken over the Dynasty Rankings on the site, rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial. Thanks to Ian for 2 great years of service to us. We thank him and wish him luck as he is now exclusively with The Athletic. But James, your top 400 prospects, now Dynasty, you're really putting in work, man, and we appreciate it. I want to specify, though, that these Dynasty Rankings are for OBP leagues, correct?
Yeah, a lot of people reached out after last week's podcast where I was kind of soliciting feedback about which format people play in and kind of want the rankings tailored towards. And it definitely seems like in Dynasty, OBP has surpassed batting average as kind of the most popular format, at least from the people that I hear from. And I think OBP is probably the most relatable one across formats because it translates better towards like points leagues than batting average does. And but I mean, I still was able to have our great tech department add some arrows. So if you do play in a batting average league, you can hit the little show average league arrows button, and it'll for all the relevant hitters or all the applicable hitters, it'll have a up or a down arrow next to them based on whether their value increases or decreases if you play in a batting average league. But I mean, OBP, like the dynasty leagues I play in, I think are probably like 2/3 OBP. So I think that's kind of where the market is kind of headed, at least on the dynasty side of things.
Yeah, I think this is very useful, especially with that show average league arrows icon. You get just easily click and see how things would adjust if you are indeed still playing in an average league. Most of my dynasty leagues are still a batting average, so I can easily do that. But also, this is 2 catchers, same as Ian's, right?
Yeah. I have been vocal in the past about not liking catchers, and I still don't really like them, but I recognize that a lot of people play in leagues where 30 plus catchers are started, and it definitely adds sort of another element of skill and strategy to the mix. And I didn't go crazy. Like I didn't rank catchers that I sort of view as replacement level catchers, guys that you should be able to find on waivers during a season if you're paying attention. But ranked, including prospects, ranked over 20 catchers in the top 400, which was more than I would ever want to rank. But you can really separate yourself if if you're in a 15-team league and everyone's got to start 2 catchers and you've got 2 of the better catchers, I mean, that really, really adds up over a season, over another team that might be kind of starting bottom of the barrel options at that position. The best ones definitely still come at a premium.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in our RotoWire Dynasty Invitational and a few others, we've gone to 1 catcher and then the double util format. I like that personally, but I also think, if you want to maximize the wrinkles in your game and the amount of strategy and the amount of skill involved, finding 2 good catchers, it's not easy. So I get people wanting to stick by that format. I prefer the 1 catcher, 2 util personally. But James, when we've talked with Ian about these, he's mentioned, premium placed on young bats. You do your prospect rankings in a similar way. And it seems like the same philosophy was applied here. The first pitcher all the way down at 26.
Yeah. I mean, I that's a change. I mean, that, when I was going through, I have to update these in our admin. So I'm like sort of noticing which guys Ian was higher on than I was. And, I think he had Shane Bieber in his top 10. So I definitely squeezed more hitters in there before I feel the need to rank the first pitcher. I think it's kind of these whole rankings need to just be interpreted very loosely based on your team context and your league context. Like, just because I have Shane Bieber ranked at 26 doesn't mean that in a certain team context I wouldn't trade him for one of the hitters that I have inside my top 20. Like if I think, turning like Francisco Lindor into Shane Bieber gives me a good shot at taking home my league title, then I'll make that trade for sure. This is just, everything being even, I'll take the hitters that I think are extremely safe and young and in their primes and healthy. I mean, we've talked about this many times on the podcast before, but I would definitely urge everyone to not just look at these and say, well, this guy's at 19 and this guy's at 22, so I need to trade the guy at 22 for the guy at 19 or anything like that. Like, you definitely have to use your head and think about where your team's at and where your weaknesses are and where your competitive window is.
Yeah, that's so important. And in the past, you have done like dynasty leagues geared toward rebuilders and those who are competitive, and it does matter definitely where you're at in your competitive cycle in your dynasty league. And when we've had Ian do these, he's written in the magazine that he's, looking mostly putting a lot of weight on the next 2 to 4 years, but also looking generally the next 10 years down the road. He's considering that as part of the equation. Do you look at this and have a time frame in mind, or is it just kind of like, just classic dynasty as far as, you're assuming your league's going to be around a while and you're looking at least short term is the emphasis?
I mean, that's why these are so hard, is because it totally depends on the specific team and the league. And, there's certain teams where you have like Max Scherzer on your roster, you have Nelson Cruz on your roster. Like, your time to win is now, and you don't even care about 2 years from now, let alone 4 years from now. Mm-hmm. And then there's other situations where you're in a full rebuild and you've got like 5 or 6 top 10 prospects, and you don't care about any of the guys that are probably only going to contribute in the next 2 years. You're looking 3, 4, 5 years down the road, like, period. Like, you just don't care about those older guys. So, that's what makes these rankings so hard, is you definitely have to rely on the user to kind of use their head and think about where their team's at, because, I definitely factor that, I'm not going to rank a guy that's post prime up with, the very best guys. But, in some case, like I probably ranked Jason Dominguez inside the top 150. He's not going to reach the majors for like 3-4 years at least. The toughest guys to rank are those old guys, like the Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is probably the toughest guy to rank because, like, I mean, he could just be cooked at any moment, but right now he's still an ace, and so you're kind of you don't want to be caught with Max Scherzer on your roster when it's finally over for him, but you also don't want to get carried away and just say I'm not going to touch Max Scherzer at all. But I mean, I kind of lean towards the side of when a guy's getting up there like 36, 37, I'm probably going to try to get out a year too early than a year too late. But we've seen with plenty of these guys where they just kind of make it last a little bit longer than you expect.
Yeah, it depends in large part what you want to do in your league. If you want to, force that competitive window open, or if you want to look a few years down the road. And in startups, you've said in the past, James, you like to play for year two, right? If you're starting a dynasty league from scratch, your emphasis is typically on year two.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's where you get the best values in the draft is when you just are willing to just say, I'm definitely not going to win the league in year one. Then you can just cross a lot of guys off of your board, and you're able to take guys where they probably should go from like a trade valuation standpoint because other managers are passing them over because they want to keep that window open in year one and don't want to close the book on it. So they're going to let value fall down the board a little bit. So I just think you can get the most value if you kind of say year two is kind of when I want to explore opening my competitive window, and you work on trades and stuff during that off season in between year one and year two to try to set yourself up for that. Maybe you don't win the league in year two, but maybe you could cash, or maybe you could at least set yourself up to be the favorite heading into year three. Like I think that's the best way to get the most amount of draft day value in your startup draft is if you're just willing to say, I'm not going to win the first year of the league. But, if you're playing in, like I just did a startup draft, and Matt Eddy from Baseball America and Brad Johnson from Fangraphs were co-managing a team, and they went hard at winning it in year one, and like they took Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom and their first two picks, and like they just put this monster team of stud veterans together that is definitely the odds-on favorite to win the league in year one. And if they win the league in year one, then they're going to both net like a couple grand or something like that. So I mean, I definitely get the argument in certain situations to go for the title in year one, but if things fall apart and things don't work out, then all of a sudden you've just got that really kind of painstaking, exhaustive, retool, rebuild, whatever you want to say. Like it can be a real pain to go through if you've definitely set yourself up to try to win now and things don't go your way. So I'd prefer to just try to keep a window open for as long as possible, and I think the best way to do that is to try to play for year two.
It's pretty fascinating to see the different approaches in startup drafts for Dynasty. And in the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational, Ryan Bloomfield, who, by the way, just won FSWA Baseball Writer of the Year. So congrats, Ryan, from Baseball HQ. Well-deserved. I love Ryan Bloomfield. He kind of took a win-now approach, and he won, the first 2 years in the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational. Don't do what I did, by the way, and toe the line between now and the future, because then you're just in no man's land. It's not all that fun. I'm going to have to figure out what to do as far as maybe tear it down, James. Maybe a full tear down. We'll see. Started that by trading you guys Herman Marquez. Anyway, let's get into these rankings. Starting with the very top guy, OBP leagues, this shouldn't catch anyone by surprise. Juan Soto, then Ronald Acuna right behind him, Fernando Tatis, Mike Trout still up there. He does get a red arrow, or not a red arrow, but an arrow down when you hit show average league arrows. Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger. A little bit of news regarding Bellinger recently, as far as sounds like he's a little bit limited still. Expects to be fully healthy by the start of the season, and it sounds like you have no real concerns that he's only swinging left-handed, or one-handed, I guess, right now.
Well, I don't want Cody Bellinger in redraft. I don't think you should touch him in the first, I don't know, 20 picks in redraft. Like I want no part of that. But in OBP Dynasty, I mean, he's still 25. Like the guys that he would be contending with, like the guys that could pass him, are all at least 2 years older than him. And he's such a stud in OBP that I think you just suck it up and you take him there at 6 if those first 5 guys are gone. But I think if you end up with Bellinger like as your first pick in like a startup dynasty, you might want to consider playing for year 2, because I do, again, like I said, I think it's going to be a rough first couple of months for him this year. And so I just, this is with an eye towards the future for sure.
Our injury expert, Jeff Stotts, was on our XM show recently. He had some of those same concerns with Cody Bellinger coming off that injury in the NLCS, maybe getting off to a slow start. He had some historical comps, so definitely check out that article in the magazine, rotowire.com/magazines, the only place to get yours. Congrats on putting that to rest last week, James. I'm excited to get those back. Again, in that publication, Ian Kahn is still doing the Dynasty Rankings. Just to clear up any confusion, these on the site now officially back to James, and you will see that it says ranked by James Anderson to reflect that change. Beyond Cody Bellinger, we got Trey Turner at 7. It is, again, these are for on-base leagues, but that speed still keeps him there. Then Christian Yelich, Bryce Harper, Eloy Jimenez. You are still a firm believer in Yelich. It was a very small sample. He'll have that in-game video back. And the Brewers kind of, they haven't done a lot, but I do expect them to be competitive in that division this year and moving forward.
Yeah. I hope they sign Justin Turner. I think that'd be great.
Would you give him a 4-year deal?
Hell yeah, it's not my money. I'd give him a 7-year deal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good
point. Be paying him till he's 40 some, but that's all right. Again, not your money.
A quick rant. Like, I hate these people that are on Twitter, like, analyzing contracts. Like, that's too much money. Like, that's too much money. Like, why do you care? Like, the owner can afford that. Like, that's going to the player instead of the owner. Who cares?
Yeah. You'll see a lot of that. Kissing up to the owners on Twitter. But yeah, I am for Justin Turner in Milwaukee if that happens. I know he's not the first. The Brewers are not the first choice. He wants to go back. But it sounds like the Brewers, they're always just sneaky good. And Yelich is such a small sample. You seem to be, completely wiping away his 2020, and I think that's probably right. But I am a little surprised to see him over like Eloy and Bichette. Jose Ramirez, 12. Vlad Jr., 13. Did you have any trouble ranking Vlad? Was that one where you went up and down, or did you have a pretty good idea where you wanted to slot Vlad into these? Vlad Guerrero.
No, that one was pretty easy. I mean, I think the stuff near the top is probably the easiest part of the rankings, honestly. I mean, I don't think you're going to screw up anything by taking any of these guys.
Might screw up by taking Trevor Story 15th. I'll just say that. No, I know you're a Story believer, even if he leaves Colorado.
Well, I just think people are over characterizing the risk. Like, I think you could, if you just knew Trevor Story was going to be in Colorado for the next 4 years, I think you can make a case for him inside the top 7 or 8. So.
Fair. I see what you're saying there. I'm worried that he could be gone pretty soon. He could still be okay elsewhere, but yeah, I'm a little surprised to see him there. Luis Robert, Robert. You corrected me. It is indeed Robert, so we'll adhere to that. Corey Seager, 17. Francisco Lindor, 18. Freddie Freeman, 19. Alex Bregman, 20. We didn't touch on this. We kind of just, it's a huge story, but we don't have anything actionable yet. But Eno Saris, Ken Rosenthal reporting that they're going to de-juice the ball, deaden the ball. Any initial reactions to that? The Freeman was the guy who, popped that idea into my head because, of course, his power numbers have exploded since the ball's been a little juicy.
I don't. I mean, I think it's obvious. Like if it's actually dead end, then I think you know who to upgrade and downgrade and everything. I don't believe anything MLB says about anything like that. So like and I don't know how long they're gonna, like, even if they deaden it, like who's to say that they don't change their minds and juice it again like 2 months into the season. Like if you're gonna take Rob Manfred at his word, then like you're gonna buy a lot of BS.
Yeah, I got a bridge to sell you if you're going to take him at his word. The first prospect on the list, we know your number one prospect, so Wander Franco at 24, and then right behind him, Julio Rodriguez, Marco Luciano not far behind them at 29, Jared Kelenic 33. I'm excited to see these guys, and I think it's interesting that you have Rodriguez over Kelenic, even though we most expect to see Kelenic, well ahead of Julio Rodriguez. Again, Luciano Devers in this group too. Jacob deGrom, the second pitcher listed, behind Shane Bieber. Then third. I'm sorry. Oh, I missed. Cole is 28. Sorry. deGrom, Bueller, Giolito, Anthony Rendon, Arenado, Brandon Woodruff, Aaron Judge, Zach Gallen, Aaron Nola, Luis Castillo. So a ton of hitters, and then there are quite a few pitchers in this range. Basically, you just going down and acting as if this were a draft that you're doing, essentially, and adding these guys there. Nola, I'm a little surprised because I thought you were not really a big Nola guy, Aaron Nola.
Yeah, I was doing some draft prep with very preliminary prep with Todd Whitestone, who I do some NFBC leagues with, and he was like, "So what don't you like about Nola?" And then I was just I looked at everything and spent like 15 minutes. I was like, "Yeah, no, you're right." I mean, I was kind of getting out in front of trying to prevent myself from buying into Nola off of what I sort of perceived as like a career year, probably from a strikeout standpoint last year. But I think I was sort of underselling in my own head sort of how reliable he's been. So I don't think I would end up with Nola necessarily with this ranking. Like I think, I think he goes ahead of Woodruff and Gallen in probably most startup drafts. So I wouldn't necessarily expect to get Nola based on this ranking, but I think I was sort of maybe underselling him. I mean, we don't talk about guys like Nola a ton on this podcast, but I probably undersold him a little bit, maybe on like the XM show and stuff when we talk redraft.
Yeah, maybe I did too. The whip projections always kind of like scare me off a little bit, but he has been solid. I just have him, a tier behind like Luis Castillo and those types, Giolito. Then Trevor Bauer behind all those names you mentioned, Castillo, Nola, Woodruff. Of course, Bauer landing with the Dodgers. Now, he is 30, so age factoring into this. Anything else that makes you a little bit lower on Bauer?
It's just, I mean, he doesn't have the track record of the rest of these guys. I mean, he's been mediocre in like 2 of the last 4 years. I know that he hasn't been using the sticky in like for his entire career. Icky. So,
yeah,
it's just either this is the high point in Trevor Bauer's fantasy value, or he's headed to the Hall of Fame. So like, I'm probably going to bet that this is the high point of his value. So, if he goes out there and puts out another like 2 ERA and sub 0.8 WHIP, then I'll eat some crow. But the track record on him just doesn't really stack up to these other guys. But I still think I'm being plenty generous ranking him inside the top 45 for Dynasty.
Yeah, there's no reason to think he's going to stop using the sticky icky and put himself back at a disadvantage. But at the same time, you're right. He's had, 2 really good years, so I get it. Him in Los Angeles is just scary. Kind of unfair.
He also got to just really take advantage of the schedule last year.
Yeah. That's Central. Both Central divisions were horrible.
I mean, these other guys did too, but he's going to have the Padres and he's got Coors and, it's.
Yeah, I hear you. Number 45, right behind Trevor Bauer, is Trent Grisham. And James, you're not a salesman, but I'm going to ask you to sell me on Trent Grisham at this spot because Tim Anderson, JT Realmuto, Michael Conforto, Spencer Torkelson, Andrew Vaughn, a lot of really good names. Obviously, at 45, you'd expect a lot of good names behind him. But what's your pitch for Trent Grisham long-term, this spot in an on-base dynasty league?
Well, the on-base part is the key there. He always has walked at a high rate, even when he wasn't doing damage in the minors. When the Brewers had him change his grip, he was still walking at really high rates. And I think he's going to continue to walk at really high rates. I think he's going to lead off for one of the 3 or 4 best lineups in the game for the foreseeable future. And I think he's going to, flirt with going 30-20. With an OBP over 350. So I didn't have to think too much about it. I mean, I know I would take Tim Anderson over him all day in a batting average league, but Grisham's going to probably double Tim Anderson's walk rate. So
yeah, maybe it was the way Trent Grisham finished the season. I'm trying to look at. He had a pretty good September, actually. He had 384 on base. So I don't know what it is in my head that, I'm just a little skeptical about him. He had that great run, but I don't see him as far as talent level being in the same class.
Part of why I think it's easy for me is because I was kind of all in on him before the Brewers even called him up for his big league debut. Mm-hmm. His 2019 AA and AAA, he was just ridiculous.
I do remember that, so I'll give you credit for that. And Gallen, you were on before anybody.
So for me, it's not like Grisham was just crazy in this weird pandemic season. He would have been in my top 100 heading into this past season. So it's,
Yeah, I hear you. Maybe I have a mental hurdle to get over with Trent Grisham. That postseason error and then getting traded, getting dumped off by Milwaukee, and I guess I just have a hard time putting him in this range of players with some pretty elite players in Major League Baseball. Maybe he deserves to be there. A real quick note from BetMGM: sports bettors know that magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed up with RotoWire to offer new BetMGM customers a free 6-month RotoWire subscription when they place their first bet. Register on the BetMGM app or website and use promo code ROTO, that's ROTO, to claim your free subscription. Once you make your first sports wager, you'll receive a season's length of RotoWire's unmatched sports insights. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sports books by signing up and placing your first bet today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, and New Jersey only. Please gamble responsibly. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado and Nevada, and 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey and West Virginia. In Tennessee, call or text the Red Line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada. James, back to your Dynasty rankings here. Updated top 400, taking these over from Ian Kahn, and these are geared toward on-base leagues, 2-catcher. And we're just working our way down the list, man. These are fresh to the site, just posted within the last hour as we're recording this. Bobby Witt, checking in at number 63, of course, a guy we're yet to see. He kind of is slotting in right behind a big group of pitchers that includes, Plesac, Corbin Burns, Glasnow, Jack Flaherty. Bobby Witt, not a lot of upper-level experience yet, and I'm trying to see if I can find your ETA for him, but definitely a long-term play, right? Even with the Royals kind of opening up their competitive window.
Well, you would think that he wouldn't be up this year, just based on his experience. They were kind of, I mean, they were just talking about him in very outlandish ways, just in terms of how impressive he was this past summer. And
he will be with the team for big league camp, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he's the most talented position player in this entire organization, and like Dayton Moore has gone out of his way to say that he's the most impressive player he's ever been around. So,
jeez,
it's definitely 2022 as kind of a everything goes normal type of ETA, and I'm not even to the point where I would take Witt in a draft and hold. I do think it's quite unlikely that he's up this year, but I don't think he's like a 2023, 2024 type of guy. I think he might be a guy that's just getting a ton of redraft buzz next year as a guy that could get, maybe an extension and break camp with the team in 2022.
Yeah, I did not know that they were speaking so glowingly about him. I know that's sometimes a lot of just, managerial speak or what have you, hyperbole. But at the same time, that's good to hear that they're, liking what they're seeing from Bobby Witt and may get somewhat aggressive with him. Below him on the list, Dylan Carlson at 66, Clayton Kershaw 67, a little bit lower, Alex Kirilloff 71. Carlos Correa 74. He had that huge postseason. Sounds like he wants to be in Houston long term. Regular season was a stark contrast to that playoff run, but more than anything, performance wise, is just the ability to stay on the field. It's been lacking. He's still only 25, 26 maybe now.
26.
26, yeah. And players typically don't get healthier with age, but you're not quite willing to write off Correa as a top, perennial top 100 type of guy.
He's really he's the type of guy that I guarantee I won't have any Carlos Correa in redraft, but the age and the production when he's healthy kind of changes the equation a little bit in Dynasty. I mean, you know that he's going to be good when he plays for the next 6-7 years. So you don't know how much he's going to play over that time span, but we've seen it's hard to know really what his true ceiling is if he can't cheat anymore. But I don't know, maybe he'll find another way to start cheating, or I don't know. He's 26.
He might need to find another way to start cheating.
When he's been good, he's been really, really good, and you just get to a point where you start am I going to rank Kevin Biggio over him? Am I going to rank? There's good players after him, but at a certain point, you just have to look at the talent level and the age and throw him in here somewhere.
It's hard to believe he's only 26. Honestly.
Well, it's hard to believe. You go to his Fangraphs page, and I mean, he's accomplished so much for a guy who just, he's got his stands on Twitter and stuff, but he, for a guy who really kind of gets talked about probably more negatively than positively these days, he's accomplished a lot as a professional baseball player, and I have to imagine there's more still to come. I mean, can you guess how many wins above replacement he's been worth in his career to date, according to Fangraphs?
I'm going to say 14.
19.4.
Wow, that's impressive. He just needs to hire a new masseuse. Take it easy on him. Not crack a rib when he's getting a massage. That was weird. Just kind of some weirdness going on with him. But, I don't know. He could maybe be worth that spot in a dynasty. The games played just scare me off from him, and not only in dynasty but redraft as well.
Really quickly, I want to say it's not for everyone, but I'm in 2 leagues now, not even counting our auto new league, which is daily moves, but I'm in 2 daily moves dynasty leagues now, and I'm kind of falling in love with the format. I know it's a ton of work. Obviously, you're checking it. Ideally, you're checking it every day. And at the very least, you have to set your lineup in advance for the days you're not going to check it. But that I just love it because there's just so much more strategy involved and so much more skill involved because you don't have to take a zero when a guy like Correa suffers an injury on like a Wednesday or something, and it makes such a greater percentage of the player pool have value. Like I have like Jordan Luplow in that league and like G-Man Choi and Yandy Diaz and stuff, just because I can plug them in when they have the platoon advantage, and it gives relievers a lot of value because you can have them in when your starters aren't pitching that day. And it's not for everyone, but if you're really into Dynasty, I would strongly recommend trying to join a daily moves league because that really takes all the luck out of the equation. And you're starting healthy guys every day. You're starting your guys when they have the best chance to succeed, and you don't have to ever deal with starting someone like on a 2-step where they have a terrible matchup and a good matchup. You can just sit them for that bad matchup.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I can't do that myself, but God bless you.
Not for
if you
you.
can.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the listeners. I know you
No,
don't
I
have
know.
time.
I know. I can't do it, man. Daily moves, you miss a day and then you're like, screw it. Or you miss a few days and you say screw it, and then you're SOL after like 3 days if you miss them.
Can I go on another mini rant? Like the COVID is like I'm still kind of on tilt for something that happened in the staff keeper basketball league earlier this week because there was like Drew Holiday got scratched at 8:15 Central, and like the game started at like 8:30, and he's gonna miss the whole week with COVID, and like I just have to take a zero for that. Like weekly leagues during the COVID era, like in all sports, but especially the NBA where they don't release these lineups till like right before tip-off. It's just ridiculous. But there we go. Rant over.
I'm wondering though, in that daily moves dynasty league or leagues that you're doing, is it daily pickups too, or just daily roster changes or daily active lineup changes?
I think there's like a waivers element or something. I mean, these leagues are so deep that the guys available to be picked up are pretty bad.
Not very good.
You can't really you could cycle relievers, but there's not much of an edge to be gained by just playing that game.
I see. Okay. I just the first come first serve in particular, I think that kind of takes away some of the skill and adds just if you're around and not doing anything.
Yeah, I don't think any of the leagues I play on are first come first serve.
That's good. That's kind of the one total deal breaker for me. I am doing the auto new staff league again. That is daily moves, but past few years I've just fallen out of it because it's so hard to keep up. And even when you're doing this for a living, it can be hard if you miss a day or two, and then you're playing catch up and it's hard to win a league like that. Luis Severino, James, on your dynasty list here at 99. I'm not going to ask you, make you defend this, but I am looking at him with a little bit of a skeptical eye. On track to return late summer, they're saying. Another guy who's still young, he's going to turn 27 here later this month. But any reason in particular? Have you gotten good reports on Severino? Is there anything that you've seen that maybe I haven't that makes you encouraged by Severino?
I have Noah Syndergaard at 98, so 2 Tommy John guys back to back there. Obviously, there's an element of risk with guys coming back from Tommy John surgery, but
success rate's pretty high.
I'd much rather draft Syndergaard or Severino than Dinelson Lamet, who's going to probably have to have Tommy John surgery here. Like, at least these guys are going to come back and pitch this year, and you cross your fingers that they don't have to have it again. I mean, there's been examples on both sides of the coin for guys just coming back from Tommy John and just going on to have awesome post Tommy John runs. And sometimes you have a Jameson Taillon situation where a guy needs a second one, and then you're kind of SOL. But I just think both those guys have top 10, top 12 starter upside, and it could be as soon as 2022. And if you're not trying to compete this year, like, these are the types of guys you should be trying to go trade for right now, because I think we've seen, like, with Syndergaard, he was pitching. I don't think he was at 100% necessarily the last season we saw him, but like with Severino, like, we've seen, like, he's a guy that, remember, like, when all the warning flags were there and it was like he's probably going to need Tommy John, and people still kept taking him like way inside the top 100. Like, that's how good he was. People thought they were getting a bargain there. I mean, they weren't, but like, it wasn't that long ago. This was a guy that was a no doubt SP1, and do you assume he's just not going to get back there, or what?
No, I don't assume that, but I do have concerns about what the level will be like post-surgery. And it was something where I remember he came to camp and like tried to throw one like breaking pitch or something, and it was immediately like he's toast. And it's just been something that was an issue long before the surgery. Hopefully the surgery takes care of it, but it's just been so long since we've seen him dominating. Remember when I traded him for Tim Anderson? Everybody was aghast at your bachelor party.
That was one of the great trades in Dynasty League history, because it happened on
crapped on me.
Yeah, I think it happened on like a pontoon boat while we were like nursing a hangover.
I might have been passed out on the pontoon boat.
Yeah,
but that trade happened, and people were a little, people thought I got ripped off or that I was just an idiot.
No.
How about that?
You were ahead of the game. You knew to trade your pitchers before they got hurt back then, and my buddy Josh, he was chasing that upside with Severino.
I get it. I just remember the reaction. It worked out okay for me, but still haven't won the league, so it hasn't worked out that great. DJ LeMahieu, he's the guy I'm worried about with the deadening of the ball. He already was a huge overperformer by most metrics last year, but you have him 114, so not too high, not too aggressive, but right ahead of Jason Dominguez. Big boy, we'll see what he can do as he gets more professional experience. Steven Strasburg, Starling Marte, Paul Goldschmidt, Lance McCullers, then Josh Hader, 120. I do not believe he's the first reliever. I think I saw a couple others. Am I right?
He is.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to... Obviously, these just got posted, so I haven't really had a chance to look over them. But, okay, so he is the first reliever all the way down at 120. Could be traded, but he could also close wherever he ends up. J.D. Martinez, another guy who will be getting the in-game video back. Austin Riley at 124, I think, is interesting because... some improvements that didn't necessarily show up in the overall stat line last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, Todd Zola wrote a great article, kind of cautioning against just assuming it's all rosy with Riley, but to me, like, the number one development last year with Riley is just that he cut his strikeout rate from 36.4% to 23.8%. Like, that's big news.
That's pretty big.
Because if he, like, and I don't even care, like, if he gets back, if it's like 27% with Riley, I don't really care. Like, as long as it's out of the 30s, still just 23 years old. I mean, I think this is more about the player I think he'll be when he's 25 years old than the player I think he'll be in 2021. But I think he's going to be a part of one of the best lineups in the game for a long time, and will be in a run producing spot there. for a long time, and just showing that he could strike out at an acceptable clip for a lengthy period of time is a big achievement. So there's going to be some growing pains still with Austin Riley. Like, I don't think this is the year that he cements himself as like one of the best hitting third basemen in the game or anything like that. But I'm encouraged, and I'm cautiously optimistic heading forward.
JJ Bleday at 142. He was the player I got eyes on when I went to Florida in 2019, and small sample, but I was not really that impressed by what I saw. You try to erase that from your mind because you don't want that firsthand bias to be warping your mentality. But he really hasn't shown much at the pro level yet, just 38 games. But am I wrong in thinking maybe he's getting by a little bit on the pedigree and where he was drafted?
Well, I think he's in better shape now than he was when you saw him, and I think all the reports coming out of their alternate site are very, very encouraging with him. I mean, I
have not seen any of those, so that's good.
I might have messaged. I think I maybe messaged, our buddy Craig Mish is plugged in with the Marlins as anyone, and he's the guy. Like, he is the unquestioned guy that they are building around in that outfield. Like, the rest of the guys, they've got a lot of exciting outfield prospects and guys who've been sort of hanging around and stuff, but Bleday is going to probably debut this year. Like, I think he probably opens at AAA and debuts in like June or July. And they sent him to the Florida State League, and he was, like you said, I mean, he maybe wasn't that impressive when you saw him, but he was still better than league average, and he was assigned to a more advanced level than either Adley Rutschman or Andrew Vaughn that year. And so, you kind of have to look at the context. I mean, he was coming off, a lot of guys don't show that well when they're coming off of a long college season.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So I think he's someone that I was too low on in the past. And I think I underrated just how good a shape he's in and just how good of an athlete he is. He's not going to play center field, but I think he could in a pinch. Like, I think that's the type of athlete he is. And he's a guy that projects to be a middle of the order hitter for them.
That's encouraging. And I know you did a lot of digging, which is great for the magazine. I just haven't seen these reports myself, but you put in a lot of work digging around the internet for the profiles in our magazine. So thank you. And thanks to Craig Mish for sharing some of that insight. When a guy like that hasn't been seen on the field for a while, you just don't know. And that's a pretty high rank. So I wanted to find out what you knew that none of us did. Trevor Larnach down at 206. A lot of people talking about Kirilloff, us included, love Kirilloff as a fifth outfielder type, and especially in draft and hold with the deep benches. That you're not really being hurt by stashing a player for a few weeks. Is Larnach maybe a guy who's fallen under the radar with so much hype on Kirilloff?
Well, I think all the hype on Kirilloff is warranted. I see the Twitter, the stuff I see on Twitter is people trying to make the case that Larnach is just as good as Kirilloff, and that like people are sleeping on Larnach, and like that these two are about the same, and that like you shouldn't talk about Kirilloff without mentioning Larnach. And I don't. So I think he's a little overrated in some circles. Now for OBP, I like him a lot. People, I don't know, maybe people think I'm too low on him at 206, but he's a big guy. He's like 6'4". He's got long arms. He struck out too much at AA, quite frankly. Like, I don't think you can look at that given his age and say that was in line with what you would have necessarily expected from him. I think he's going to strike out. He's going to be like one of those 28% strikeout guys, I think, just given how big he is. But, the power is massive. Problem is, he might end up being like a DH type, left field DH, something like that. And the Twins obviously have plenty of those guys. So Kirilloff is easier to kind of fit in, and I think Kirilloff is clearly got the better hit tool of the two. The power edge, honestly, like if you watch them take BP, I mean, I could see Larnach actually looking like maybe the better power hitter, but in terms of game power, Kirilloff, I think he's the total package.
Nice. 211, Jazz Chisholm. Not a great debut for him, but you still like his prospects long term. Still very young. 215, Asa Lacy. Do you think we see Lacy debut with the Royals this year?
I don't think so. You know, I wouldn't rule it out, but their system is so fun. Like I find myself doing these. Actually, I just took Asa Lacy in a first-year player draft at the 10th pick, and I was happy to get him there. But I've been ending up with all kinds of Royals pitching prospects, and they have a handful that are probably waiting in line ahead of Lacy to get their shot. So I would expect Daniel Lynch to break through in June or something like that. I would expect Jackson Cower to break through around the same time. So it's going to be sink or swim for the guys that open the year in that rotation. Like I would expect Brad Keller and Brady Singer and Mike Minor to be safe. You know, Chris Bubich is probably safe. But like I could see everyone else in there. Like if you're not performing, you're going to be short for that rotation, and someone will probably get hurt at some point as well. So they just have so many young pitchers who are trying to get into that rotation. I think Asa Lacy, while he did go to the alternate site, I don't think I think they'd like to get him a full year in the minors probably and let some of these other guys debut ahead of him.
You know, I was thinking maybe Bubich could use some more time back on the farm because he was looking like a pretty impressive prospect, right? And then he struggled big time at the major league level. They may need him, but he's a guy that I feel like.
Well, honestly, one of those guys where it was a testament to how good he was at the alternate site that he even got a look because he had never played
above like high A, right?
Yeah, I think he skipped Double A and Triple A altogether. So, I mean, Bubich, like Singer's more floor than ceiling. Bubich is more floor than ceiling. Those guys debuted ahead of the guys that had the ceiling. So I still think they view Bubich as like their number 5 starter, and maybe Brady Singer as their number 3 starter. And maybe Bubich loses out on a rotation spot if he isn't firing on all cylinders this spring, but I think he'll go to camp with one of those rotation spots being his to lose.
Very nice. 284 Kikuchi, Yusei Kikuchi. Seen him get a lot of love on Twitter lately. We were the first to be pounding that drum. It's a pretty obvious guy to be on this year at his ADP.
Wait, man. People have figured out.
Yeah,
cracked the Kikuchi code.
Yep. People are finally seeing that FIP getting all in on him. But no, I do like him quite a bit this year. And I love seeing that Joey Votto's still hanging on to a spot on this list on an on-base.
Yeah, it's all about the OBP. I mean, that he would be nowhere to be found if this was for batting average.
Yeah, I hear that. Not a lot of Reds making the list. That's a little bit troubling. TJ Antone, though, at 353. That's nice. James, we're pushing up on an hour here. Anything else you want to mention? I don't want to keep you too long because I know you've been up putting a ton of time into these. So anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I got an article that'll probably be coming early next week, just kind of providing some analysis. I mean, there's no analysis other than this podcast, but in the meantime, hit me up on Twitter if you have any specific questions, or you can tell me which guys I'm wrong about or whatever. I'm sure there are plenty of those. But yeah, I'm just glad that these are done. I can't wait to. I don't know if I'm going to take a nap or eat some food or what, but
you deserve some you time, buddy. Yeah, thanks for all the hard work, James. Check this out. A lot to sift through, a lot to nitpick here, and I'm sure you will be getting some people on your case about a few of these rankings. James, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.